Support for This News is So Gay comes from the LGBTQ Opportunity Fund of the Cleveland Foundation, leveraging philanthropy to empower LGBTQ communities. Welcome to This News is So Gay. I'm your host, Ken Schneck, editor of the Buckeye Flame, Ohio's LGBTQ newsroom. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, we interrupt your regularly scheduled LGBTQ Reporters Roundtable to bring you another special edition of our podcast. This is
Extra, extra, read all about it.
Extra Extra is an opportunity to hear more from the LGBTQ journalists who have helped define our field and continue to shape possibilities for LGBTQ journalists. Today's guest melds together LGBTQ activism, history, and queer journalism in truly just the most incredible way. Mark Segal, truly a legend. He founded the Philadelphia Gay News. He created and served as president of the National LGBT Newspaper Guild. He pioneered space on the radio waves as an out gay radio host. He is so rightfully in the LGBT Journalist Hall of Fame, and in what I have to assume is a crowning achievement, he is now here with us. Mark Segal, welcome to This News is So Gay.
This is the highlight of my life.
I didn't even know if it would be the highlight of your day. So the fact that we got bigger than that is huge. I am so excited to chat with you, Mark. We have a lot of ground to cover, so let's jump in. When little Mark Segal was growing up there in Pennsylvania, what was the goal? Was it journalism?
Oh my God, such a great question. When I was little, I don't think I was ever little. I think I grew up and I was a 49-year-old man the minute I was born. Interestingly enough, my husband Jason and I were last night talking about childhood memories. And I remembered a school trip where I was born in 1951. When I say I'm old, I'm really old. In my elementary school, we had a trip to the local daily newspaper, which was the Evening Bulletin. And I remember them taking us down to the press type room. You know, and that really impressed me. Then when I was a young teenager, I sold subscriptions to the Philadelphia Inquirer. So I do, I guess, have a newspaper background, but I never assumed for the life of me while I was doing both those things that I would end up being in the newspaper business.
And we shouldn't gloss too quickly over Outstanding Young Person of the Year from the United States Junior Chamber. Mark, I mean, if that's not a crowning achievement, that's big.
No.
I am moving on. Well, anybody who has access to the internet can see just the most incredible interviews you've given about your involvement in Stonewall. And one would assume, well, we're obviously just going to talk about you being present at Stonewall, but people can go on YouTube for that. I want to pivot a little bit and talk about, what do you remember about how Stonewall was covered by the media and your thoughts on that?
It's easier to say how it wasn't covered by the media. I think there were 5 reports. New York Times did one, either the Daily News or the Post. Advocate did it, Village Voice, WBAI Radio, and that's about it. I mean, you have a riot going on in the middle of Greenwich Village, and the only reporters there were from the people who had their office literally on the block, which was the Village Voice. And we had, white, straight, privileged reporters covering, who were friends, by the way, with the police who did the raid, doing the only, on-site report of the raid. So it's not very good at all.
No, I have to imagine that inspired you to say, we need our own outlet here.
I think there was a combination of everything I'd seen in my life and what I'd been a part of and how I felt, which brought me to do what I do. I think each little thing in my life got me to where I am today. And they all were a surprise to me as I got there. Being outside Stonewall, the first thing I thought about was what my grandmother taught me. My grandmother, her family, when she was young, lived in Russia. They had to leave Russia because of the pogroms. As she was growing up in the United States, she became a suffragette. When I was 13, she took me to my first civil rights demonstration. And standing outside Stonewall, putting that all together, it was like, women are fighting for their rights, blacks are fighting for their rights. Hell, why can't we?
Yeah.
And so that got me there. And then from there, I got to Gay Liberation Front, which taught me two things. A, we had to create a community where there was none before, and hey, we're going to be out loud and proud. And to me, that those three words meant one. I condensed them to one word, which is visibility. And that got me to disrupting TV stations. That got me to meeting the governor of Pennsylvania. That got me into taking a tour to support a gay newspaper out of Pittsburgh, where on the way home, Jim Austin said, gee, why don't you have one of these newspapers in Philadelphia? And I said, well, no one's done one. And he said, Mark, look at the bottom of your shoe. And I looked at it and he says, you have holes in your shoes. He says, someday you'll have to do something for a living. So start a newspaper. And that's
I can't believe that. I mean, look, I was 43 when I started the Buckeye Flame, and I remember thinking, I was 5 years ago, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm way too young to be doing this. You were in your mid-20s when you
and I didn't
started.
know what I was doing either.
But what do you remember about so you had to create the Philadelphia Gay News in your mid-20s. What were the first even steps that you took there?
When I look back at it now, it is extremely bizarre. So we had to borrow someone's apartment in those days, there were no computers. Zero. We had an IBM Selectric which typed out each of the columns. We had someone sitting there typing them. Then we took those columns and took sort of like a rubber cement, a wax actually, and put them down on repro paper. We then had to use press type to do the headlines.
Wow.
And as we're doing this in someone's apartment, the couple who are living there have decided to have a fight. And they are fighting. And I mean, rolling down the stairs, there's blood everywhere. And we're trying to protect the flats, is what we called them, from any blood getting on the flats. At the same time, we take the paper to the press, and before we get it back to distribute it, I'm in the middle of City Hall courtyard doing a hunger strike, handcuffed to the city Christmas tree. How's that for an opening of a newspaper?
I can't
I
wrap
mean, when
my
I
mind
think
on
about it
it.
now, it's absolutely bonkers.
Because you did continue this line between journalism and activism is such a fascinating one to me. I have certainly been hit with, we actually have been quite open about the fact that we were turned down for membership in the Ohio Legislative Correspondents Association because they said, no, 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 you're not journalists, you're activists. You have skirted that line, skated that line, blurred that line, certainly played with that line. What is that line for you between journalism and activism?
Well, first, I got to welcome you to a very, private club, which you and I now are part of, because I've not heard this from anybody else but you. We were turned down for membership in the Pennsylvania Newspaper Publishers Association for 15 years because being gay, it wasn't a real newspaper. So, welcome to the club. What is it like? Well, if we feel that this community of ours is fighting for equality, that means we're fighting for equality on every single step. That means you are fighting to make sure that you have equality with your local newspapers. Whatever rights they have, you need to have. And if you don't have them, you have to fight for them any way you can. It's either go to court or, as I did most of the time, civil disobedience. Peaceful civil disobedience. If you can't get what you need, try handcuffing yourself to the city Christmas tree. Handcuff yourself to the Liberty Bell. I mean, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
I think that my activism and journalism comes from my youth. Everything follows suit. I don't know how I got from one step to the other, but I think the lessons I learned in Gay Liberation Front in those early years are still with me. I think the journalism in Philadelphia Gay News comes from that. I mean, when I think of the last month now, the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that I was sparring with Ken Burns and his American Revolution PBS special, which is on right now, all this week. And the fact is that in all of his American Revolution, there are
Mm.
no LGBT people in the American Revolution. He does mention Baron von Steuben, but he doesn't mention he's gay. But he also does a slur about von Steuben. And so that's the best of journalism. I say that for one very simple reason. So it started out with me debating with his team that small, very small clip in his documentary. And then when I was getting nowhere with them, the next step was my journalism hat got on, which was okay, let's research what they've done in the past. And I discovered something that to me was absolutely homophobic. There is not one LGBT character in any Ken Burns documentaries, not one. So the final point, which made me very proud, so the minute I published the story, which I hope other publications publish because it's damn good and it's good journalism and it helps their publications get reaction, which is what newspapers should do. I got a call from the public, from the producers, and they needed to correct two facts in the article. And those two facts were very simple. They were the titles of two of the people who were the producers and the directors. Thereby, every fact in that article is correct.
Did they not wanna mention the lack of LGBT characters? That didn't come up?
They had to admit I was correct.
There it was.
They couldn't correct it. I mean, if they would have said, well, blah, 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 I would have said, well, you'll notice I've mentioned the other documentaries you've done and who you didn't mention or who you left out. Would you like to say any of that's not true? And they couldn't.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. So what other thing should LGBT publications be doing? So this Wednesday, my column does a story on the fact that here in Philadelphia, right now there's a big fight in city council about how much money should be spent on affordable living to give to people who are under the poverty line. And I wrote a column saying, you know, most people in our community, for some odd reason, don't realize this is an LGBT issue. Well, almost every issue that goes before any government body is an LGBT issue. Do you realize there are people in our community that are, you know, poverty or under the poverty line or just making a living? And here's another point, which is really good. We need to build LGBT senior affordable living spaces. And without that kind of legislation and that funding, we don't get that done. And one of the things I learned in GLF, going right back to that source, is, you know, when you're building a community, you look out for the most vulnerable people in your community. So that's the activism part of me coming into journalism.
Well, look, I am very upfront about things I am capable of and things I am not capable of. And I was not a journalist in the 1980s. And quite frankly, I'm not sure I could have pulled it off. We talked with your buddy, Tracy Bame, a few months back just about being a queer journalist in the 1980s. How was that experience for you as the death toll continued to rise as our community truly was just decimated?
Traumatic.
Yeah.
We knew we were the only source of news. And that news, I mean, people jokingly in Philadelphia called us the Philadelphia AIDS Journal
Mm.
because every week the paper was full of AIDS stories and we had to cover them. And some of them weren't very nice. What about a funeral home that wouldn't accept gay bodies? What about going to a hospital and realizing that all the AIDS patients are on, what was it, fifth floor, and it looked like something from NASA. You had to wear a suit to go in. There were lines like police tape, stay out. It was horrendous trying to find doctors that would even see you. Then, you know, realizing that the government, you know, wouldn't work on anything to help not only cure you, but treat you. Um, Remembering going on, you know, a walk by the White House where Nancy Reagan ordered the drapes to be closed so they wouldn't have to see the demonstrators walking by. Seeing the first AIDS quilt. Having friends tell you they've decided to die because they didn't want to go through what was happening. I mean, I think there's a story to be had or a book to be had about all of us who went through that period of time and the scars they left. In my book, I wrote the fact, which surprised me, and I had to talk to a lot of HIV experts on this. We went through war, and the way I stated it what very clearly was in the Vietnam War, 60,000 people died, and all the people around them. Well, in the HIV world, in just the United States, 500,000 people died, and also all the people around them it affected. And all of us who went through 12 years, because it took 12 years before we started getting treatments, who went through that and saw illness and death and breakups. It's PTSD.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if younger readers are even interested in that.
Well, I think that there are lessons, though, from it. How do you even manage a staff through that, a journalism staff through something like that, and make sure the newsroom keeps it together? I can't even imagine keeping it together.
Well, you have times when you just get together and cry together. You have other time you have to realize that you're doing something to help get your community through this. That's your job is to deliver information. And also, there were a lot of fighting amongst our own community members about which way to go, what to do. And so you have an op-ed page which gives, and letters to the editor, which give everybody a chance to air out their grievance, put their point down. If they disagree with the paper's editorial slant, say so. I mean, that's one of the greatest things about LGBT journalism is hopefully all of us give a chance to people to express their opinion or their side of a political slant, whatever that may be. Dialogue is really important.
Yeah. Again, listeners, you are listening to This News is So Gay. I'm your host, Ken Schneck, editor of the Buckeye Flame, Ohio's LGBTQ plus newsroom. We are doing a special edition of Extra Extra this week with journalism legend Mark Segal. You mentioned op-eds and wielding your pen, certainly with everything going on with the Ken Burns documentary, and certainly pushing back on some marriage equality views expressed a few weeks ago. And I want to go up to that 42,000-foot level. What inspires you to write an op-ed? Is there a narrative thread that connects? Because there have to be any number of issues where you, Mark Segal, have said, all right, I'm not addressing that one, but I definitely have to address this one. What jumps off the news at you that you say, I have to?
Well, correct. One thing you just said, there is no item, no topic I would not address.
I'm just worried about capacity.
At 74 years old, I'm not afraid to give my opinion. So that's one good thing. Not if you're writing 52 columns a year, as I do, well, a few weeks out of the year I don't write, but if you're writing that many columns a year, you're not going to be inspired every single week. I know when I have a good column, I know like this one coming out on affordable housing. I'm just really thrilled about that because we don't always get the opportunity to talk about LGBT senior housing and senior housing for runaways, which is what affordable housing for me means. So that one I was passionate about. I wrote that probably in about 20 minutes. Then on the other hand, if I'm having a week where I'm not inspired by my own column or don't have a subject matter, which I'm really happy about, you'll see me walking around asking people, what do you think I should write about this week? Those usually are not good, but occasionally you'll start writing something that you're really not interested in that someone suggested to you, and you'll find a hook that will take you onto something else. But I'm really proud when I get a subject matter which I really care about. I was really incensed when Glad bought their executive director a chandelier and tried to use the excuse that she's doing podcasts, $25,000. That was graft, corruption, I don't care what you want to call. By the way, that column, first place, National Newspaper Association, national first place.
We have to reveal the other connection that we have, and I promise not to make you cry, but we did learn on This News is So Gay 2 weeks ago that your husband, Jason Villamez, who I will always say was on the pilot of This News is So Gay over 3 years ago and so happily continues to appear on this show, and we're so thankful to have the opportunity to work with him. He said that he does see some of your columns before they go out. I think probably more than some. Talk to me about working with another journalist to whom you are married and how that energy flows back and forth.
I first have to say that Jason is more brilliant to me, can write better than I can. And if I'm not sure of something, I will always say, here, take a read on this, take a look at it. And he will make suggestions. And 9 times out of 10, I will take his suggestions because, again, he's more brilliant than me. When you love a man and you trust them and you really are partners, It's magic. I love that part of our relationship. I really do. And anything that journalistically I've been awarded for, I give him 50% of the credit.
What a great guy. I'm not married to him, and I appreciate him, so this works out just fine. Well, let's talk about the landscape for queer journalism. Look, a lot of times when we're having this conversation, and in particular with some of the organizations that support queer journalists, it's about having a conversation about queer journalists in mainstream newsrooms. But it is an altogether different conversation to talk about specifically LGBTQ plus newsrooms. And you certainly were involved with your colleagues in creating this super important report that was just published in the past couple months about the landscape for LGBTQ plus newsrooms across the country. Again, let's maybe stay with that 42,000-foot level. How are we doing, Mark? How is the landscape for LGBTQ plus newsrooms?
I think we are in a very problematic period for journalism. We're trying to reinvent ourselves to some extent. We're doing things like this right here, your podcast. This is pioneering for the LGBT media. It is, and you should be congratulated on that. We're trying newsletters. We're trying going for philanthropic dollars, which we've never done before. We're throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks or what works. We at PGN are trying some new things that we've never done before. I mean, I think we're very lucky. Unlike most publications, LGBT or those people in the heterosexual world, whatever their publications are called, um, we're in the black. And I think we're in the black because of the kind of journalism we do. I keep saying, if you want to read something primarily about, the latest thing that Trump is doing, you're going to see that, in every newspaper and, podcast and TV station in the world. If you do local, and do local, your community, you own that story. No one else does. Therefore, the reader has to come to you. And that's what we try to do is, you're not going to find the big major stories, national stories, excuse me, in PGN. They'll be there, but they're going to be in the back pages. What's going to be on the front page is what's happening locally. And so, it means that people in our community want to read that newspaper. I mean, I know that people are going to wake up. My affordable article comes out, will be on the website on Wednesday at 7 a.m. I know Thursday there will be people from our community calling city council people saying, are you supporting this piece of legislation? And that's what that's aimed for, is that we need to create our own grass movement and make sure that our communities are engaged. And if your community is engaged, that means your publication will do well, or your media, I should say, because we're not just newspapers anymore. And again, that's another thing. How long will newsprint actually be around? I mean,
Right.
are we going to be totally on the web? Or, are we going to be in some other format? Or are you going to go to Chat GPT and say, hey, tell me what the gay headlines are? We don't know yet. I mean, uh, and it's not just us, by the way. I mean, traditional media is also going through the same issues. They're all trying new formats. I mean, most daily newspapers at this point are trying paywalls. Some are working, some aren't. I watch in Philadelphia as our local newspaper, Philadelphia Inquirer, has gone to a paywall and basically fired most of its advertising staff. So therefore, they're expecting money to come in through two streams, which would be, philanthropic and also people buying their subscription. And we're trying that in many ways. We don't have paywalls, but we're asking people to make donations. And that's kind of interesting. And I found that amazing. I like every time I get a little note that, oh, so and so has signed up for, to pay X, many dollars per month to support the work of PGN. That feels good in the sense that people recognize your worth and are paying whatever they can afford to do that. They could do that with any other publication or news media. So that's really nice.
Yeah.
I can't predict the future.
I wish you could, because I would trust your predictions. But yeah, one of the other pieces about doing this work is we can't mandate what matters to folks as much as we want to draw our audience's attention to maybe certain issues that they about which they might not know or might not have a path forward. We can't always force them to care. I feel like you have a list of things that you tried to get people to care about, and you thought, why aren't people getting up in arms about this? What's one of those times where you said, all right, this is going to coalesce folks, and maybe for some reason it didn't hit?
The Ken Burns piece. I
Yeah.
thought that was really important, primarily because I love LGBT history, and that topic. It was a surprise to me when I learned that von Steuben was. I've written more about von Steuben than almost anybody in this nation at this point, and I can debate him with anybody, and that includes all of Ken Burns' producers and directors. And it amazed me that they didn't know anything about the character they put on screen, and they didn't realize how they depicted him. And I thought, well, we should care, all of us, about the fact that we are part of the creation of this country. A gay man helped create the United States of America, and we should take great pride in that. And that's important to me because I live in Philadelphia, of course. We're the city with this cracked bell. I don't know if it resonated with a lot of other people, but regardless, I'm glad I got it out there. I'm glad I got to do the research and tell the story of Ken Burns, who's never met a gay person in history.
Apparently not. That's
No, I
amazing.
mean, Leonard Matlovich, the poster boy for Don't Ask, Don't Tell, wasn't included in his Vietnam, documentary. Eleanor Roosevelt, didn't even mention the fact that possibly she was a lesbian. And Ma Rainey, wasn't a lesbian and what had nothing to do with jazz. Those are just three examples of what Ken Burns has done.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going back. I read that one. I'm going back and reading it now, though, with new eyes. We always like finishing, Mark, with a little bit of advice. I can only hope that you have as many opportunities as you deserve to mentor LGBTQ plus journalists, because I can't think of a better mentor than you.
Oh, you're very kind.
What are some of those patented pieces of Mark Segal advice for queer journalists looking to make this their life?
Just don't be afraid.
There it is. You have to know, sir, if I have not made it abundantly clear, you are such a hero of mine. Just the way that you straddle activism and journalism and pave this path, there is no question that I would not be doing what I do without your influence. I am
Oh,
so
you are so
enormously appreciative.
kind and bullshit. Yes, you would. In order to do this, you have to have the fire in the belly, and you have the fire in the belly.
It was the holes in your shoes, though. That's what I'm talking about, from the well-worn path. And so I hope that you have all of those incredible opportunities to pause and say, "Oh my gosh, look what I've done and look what I continue to do," because you make a difference, Mark.
Jason has been fighting with me for years to do just that, and he's now exceeded, and it's been a process, and I am very proud of the past, shall we say, and always was not. And I'm beginning to talk about it more and more, which in the past I didn't want to talk about it because it's like, oh, I got a new project. Let's just go forward. Let the past is back there.
Because we should mention a little bit of an anniversary for PGN coming up. What are
Oh,
we talking about for the Philadelphia Gay News?
you're talking about my latest project, which is to try to create some event of some sort to celebrate our 50th anniversary, which of course means more work.
It
And at
does.
the same time, wait, at the same exact time, I'm working with Visit Philadelphia and the Independence Visitor Center. They're the ones who are the official visitor center for Independence Hall to create an LGBT visitor center in Philadelphia, which we will open in January.
Amazing. Well, I'm going to hereby say it. And when I say things out loud, I hold myself to them because I am just that stubborn. If there is some sort of gala big event, I promise to be there for the PGN 50th anniversary, because my gosh, it's so well deserved. The reason that I love talking to you, Mark, is because I know that you're going to keep doing what you're doing. And I love that it makes such a difference. So thank you, thank you, thank you, Mark.
You're so kind. You just keep doing what you're doing because it's important that people in Ohio have a voice and have a place to go for information. And just think that if you don't, I'll come there and kill you.
Yeah, no, it's fear-based now. Again, everyone stroll on over to the Philadelphia Gay News and read everything that Mark is doing. Mark, thank you.
My pleasure, Ken.
Again, I'm Ken Schneck, editor of the Buckeye Flame. And if you liked this episode of This News is So Gay, please share it with a friend. Subscribe so that you do not miss out on our next episode. Send an email on over to editor@thebuckeyeflame.com. That's me, to let us know your thoughts, and rate and review us on your favorite podcasting app. This News is So Gay is a product of the Buckeye Flame, a nonprofit newsroom. Become a recurring donor today for as little as $12.50 a month, which truly enables programming just like this. And right this second, it's News Match, which means that every donation is doubled until December 31st, and that is big for a scrappy queer newsroom like ours. In the meantime, read LGBTQ+ news, share the stories of LGBTQ+ reporters, and support the work of LGBTQ+ newsrooms. Until next week, friends.